I started making records about 10 years ago when I was in college, because I had amassed these songs that I'd written, and I had a buddy that had a studio, and he was like, oh, let's make a record. And I was like, word to that, let's do it, But I've been a musician for, I guess I've been playing guitar since I was in 6th grade, and I've had bands since then, But we used to do like U2 covers and Police covers, and so I started writing songs that were that I liked around high school. I started playing acoustic guitar right around like 14, 15. I thought, I don't need an electric guitar. I used to want to be in Poison, fucking rock it. But so I started to realize that the acoustic guitar might be sort of more suited to my stuff. And since then, I've been writing songs and kind of writing really bad ones at the time, And then sort of as I got to college, I started to kind of amass ones that I was like, oh, these are cool. Like, this one's okay. This one's okay. And then kind of put out a record from it. There's 2 phases of songwriting. There's like the creative vomit phase, where you just kind of, what's in you comes out. And then there's the refinement period, which is like where you sift through it and you're like, this is terrible, and this is good. Okay, cool, I got it. And usually that process happens for a while with both lyrics and melodies and guitar parts. And then I'll sit down and kind of try and put those 2 together. So they kind of come separate and they cook on their own, and then I see which ones feel like they fit together. And in the process of trying to fit them together, other parts come and things kind of grow, and the song kind of starts to take shape. Multiple songs kind of take shape all at once, because you'll be like, oh, this verse doesn't work, but boy, it goes under this chord progression better than it did that one, and then all of a sudden you're kind of you're juggling like 3 songs. It's a cool way to write because it's sort of, you feel like you're always, it's like on the stove, you've got 3 fucking, pans going all at once. So it's cool. Every record that Ron made, whether I liked the record or not, had every aspect of what I thought a record should have. All the engineers that he used, all the studios that he recorded in, all the band members that he used. And he used different people on every record, But they were always people that I'd go, God, I love that player. God, I love that drummer. It would be Matt would play on one record, or Jim Keltner would play on one record, or he would always get, or, whoever was the bass player on whatever record that he did. It would always be like, that's the guy. And no matter if I listened to the record and I liked the songs, I liked what he was I got kind of a vibe over all of his records about what he was trying to make happen. And so for me, it was like kind of this thing of like, if I get along with this guy, I feel like we're going to be in good shape. And I went to his house for a couple of days and just hung out, and it was great. Totally cool. He was actually sort of the bomb. He's kind of a spacey cat, He's just sort of like creative, spacey. He's an amazing guitar player, like unbelievably good. And he has a really good vision of what the end result is. But everything, getting to that place for him is a feel-based situation, and anybody that works from feel only is sort of seemingly disorganized, because they'll be kind of orchestrating this thing, and you're like, what are you doing? Where is this going? And for me, it took a while, because that was the hardest part. I felt like I trusted him, but for me to let go of the reins of production and to not be so obsessive about the way the record was supposed to sound, I felt like there were moments where I was like, I'd call my wife and I'd be like, I think this is going completely out of control, But then he would just always reel it back in. He always had the end result in his, that's his sort of gift, is that, he doesn't get bogged down by the details. He kind of does it by feel. And then you end up at the spot where you're like, yeah, you totally had it. You that's amazing. I thought we were gone for, I thought there were moments where I was like, this song's a wash, And then he'd just pull it together. It was great. So he was a really good person to steer the ship and keep everybody on course and keep everybody corralled in to the right ideas. It was nice. The good news about this time, since I'd made all those records before, I would have to guide the musicians that play. I'd be like, I was thinking more like this kind of feel, or I was thinking more this. But when I got to do this record, I got to kind of have people that I've always wanted to play with, because they were the people that made records that influenced the way I write and the way that I do things. So like to have David play guitar, to have Glenn sing backup, Glenn Phillips from Toad, to have Matt play drums, to have Jamie play keys. It was one of these things where it was like I didn't have to guide them anymore. Instead, I got to just sort of let them spend their energy instead of trying to figure out where they wanted me to go, because I trusted how they did their thing. I got to just let them do their thing, and so their energy was spent creatively as opposed to like trying to be like, oh, is this what you mean? You know, it was like, because Matt Chamberlain, it was like anything he played, there's probably 95% success rate for me. You know, he'd do something and I'd be like, you're the man. All right, here we go. You know, or David would do this thing and I'd be like, maybe occasionally I'd be like, that's not the tone I was thinking, but pretty much not at all. You know, it was just like, oh, you're the man. You're the reason I'm here, and I'm, you know, you can do whatever you want to do, because it was just everything felt like they treated the songs, they were really attentive to what the songs wanted, and I felt really safe with them going in whatever direction they felt like they needed to go in. And so it was a pleasure to make it, you know, it was a pleasure.
With Matt and the band deciding mainly how the music was going to go, I wondered how the label affected any of the music.
No, they had no involvement in the record. That was why I signed the deal with them, because the A&R person that I was dealing with, I felt like she and I do see eye to eye creatively. I knew that they wouldn't get involved. It was really a hands-off creative thing. And I got to pick Ron, I got to pick the studio, I got to pick the engineer, I got to pick the band, I got to pick the songs, I got to pick the... It was just because I'd been making records for so long that I really wasn't into the idea of having someone come in and try and tell me how my career could be better. You know what I mean? Like, I'm into, like, people being like, you know what you could try to do this. But I'm not into people being like, this is the producer for you. Because music is my life, and I know every producer, and I know every engineer, because that's like my obsession, you know? I listen to records, and I can name who engineered your favorite record. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, and because I just love it so much. And so it's like, so to have, it was the kind of thing where like anything they would recommend, I'd be like, no, I didn't like those 3 records that person did. I kind of have an idea, actually, so just don't worry about it. And it kind of worked out well. It was like they gave ideas and they kind of lobbed them my way, but I would be like, no, let's do this, you know, because I kind of had a vision of how I wanted to go. And so it worked out really well. It wasn't even, it's not like I'm arrogant about it, but it's just sort of like, it's like I know what kind of record I've always wanted to make. And so I've kind of been dreaming of the day when I'd have the opportunity to, like, get the players or get the studio or get the engineers. So I wasn't really down with, like, anybody else kind of ruining my day, you know what I mean? And being like, no, you should use this producer, you know, he's hot. And she wasn't that kind of A&R person at all. She had no bullshit. And so she wouldn't, you know, a lot of people say who's ever hot that at that time, they'll be like, oh, that person should produce your record. Well, it just wasn't the way she worked, and that's why I did the deal with her, because she was great. So far, the only thing is that being on a major has been a lot easier to get access to things that I've always wanted to do, whether it was the band stuff that we talked about before, or going to these radio stations and playing, but good radio, like non-commercial, great stations that play amazing stuff. For me to be able to do that on my own, it was really hard to corral all that stuff, and to be on a label and to be able to kind of give them a guide. Look, I want to go to these non-commercial stations. I want to play. I want to get in there. I want us to do this thing. You know, hey, I want to be able to get records into stores. Hey, I want to be able to do this. I want to be able to play on this thing. Or let's go. When we're in LA, I want to play on Napster. I want to do the, you know, that. And that's the kind of thing. It's like, so far it's been kind of access all areas. I kind of say, let's get this happening. And I kind of bring it up to them and they kind of pull it together. So far it's been a fairly pain-free situation. You know, and it's funny because we're just kind of doing our thing. The real test is when things start to happen a lot. Like, they're going really well now and everybody's psyched. But if it starts to happen, the real challenge, I think, of being on a label and trying to remain in control a little bit is that you have to, when things start happening, that's when they get excited, and that's when they start pushing to do things that you might not want to do. And so you got to kind of stay firm. You got to pick your battles in those situations. And that's the kind of thing that I think I'm just going to have to learn how to do. If things start going well, that's when they'll get involved. It's kind of like anything, you know, like your business is doing great and they're kind of helping, and then all of a sudden it blows up and things start going crazy. And then they're like, all right, let's get now, let's go. Because they're really good at selling millions of records. They're not so good at selling 100,000 records. So once things start moving, then it's going to be, I'm sure they're going to get more involved, and then there'll be more opinions that I'll have to sort of weigh and be like, okay, I'm not really wild about that, or that I can live with, you know, that kind of stuff. I think it's going to be a long time. I think this record's going to be out a long time before it's going to be a growing situation, you know? But I think I Want Suspended to be the first single. Suspended, and then maybe I Saw, and then Sad Songs. Yeah. But I don't know if we'll even get that far. But I'm feeling like Suspended is a song that I feel like impacts me more, and I kind of think it's better. I like Sad Songs a lot, but I feel like Suspended's got something that I dig more. When I listen to it more, the longer I've had it, I've been like, it's Suspended I like, you know, and I like sad songs a lot, but it's just Suspended I feel like has something. So I think we're going to go with that.
Matt's been on the road for about 2 years now, solo, with a cellist named Matt Fish, but he is looking at getting a full band.
It's a lot easier to do it, and we've been doing it this way for a long time, so I think we're going to ramp up and get a drummer for the next round of shows, and then when we tour again, we'll bring a band. So it's the kind of thing where, like, Matt and I get along really well, and I feel like we accomplish a lot, and I feel like it's better to build. For me, also, I was touring without a label and anything like that, so it's a lot less expensive to do it this way as well. And now that the label's involved, I kind of still feel like as a trajectory, it's a lot better to kind of slowly add pieces and give. The next time you come to Boston, or the next time you go to Vancouver, or the next time you go, you have like, oh, they have something, oh, there's a drummer now, you know, and then, oh, cool, there's a bass player and a drummer and a guitar, you know, and then all of a sudden, you know, so we're slowly building the beast. They've been really helpful, and it's pretty much keeping them at bay because their attention span is a major label. Mm-hmm. You really only get, it's difficult to sustain that kind of momentum, do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so we're just trying to, you bring it along yourself, and these little victories along the way where people are like, oh my God, great, 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 oh great, and the sound scan's going up and everybody's excited, and then you build this thing and then they run with it. You know, it's like you're lighting the torch and you're kind of walking it up, and then at some point they're going to come grab it and go, but it's got to be at the right time, because if it isn't, the torch might go out, and then you've lost their focus, and you've lost their, because just by nature the major label system doesn't have the grassroots thing going on. So we've just been building it before we got involved, and now we're building it with their help, but still utilizing very few of their resources, you know, and at some point we'll engage them and go for the sort of a much wider net, you know, cast a wider net.
Matt was asked to appear on the American Wedding soundtrack this past summer, recording a cover of the James song Laid. Where did that idea exactly come from?
The president of Universal was like, saw a show, heard me do some stuff. He's like, you know what song would be great for you to do? I'd like you to take a crack at this Laid song. And I was like, Laid? James, how can you redo that song? It's like perfect. Yeah. And so we did it in a day just for fun. And we didn't really expand on it because you can't. It's a perfect song, you know? So we just did it. And it ended up, they liked it. And it was like, all right, I'm down. Fantastic. That was it. That was an easy, cool thing, you know? That was pretty flattering, actually. It was neat. And it was neat to go into the theater and hear it. That was one of those moments where you're like, any jaded parts of yourself go away, and you're just kind of like, this is great. I am listening to myself in a theater. This is one of those moments. If it all ends tomorrow, I can tell my grandkids that I was in a theater and I heard my own voice. So that was pretty cool. I stood up and I yelled, "That's me. Hey, everybody, that's me." No, just kidding. Imagine. I'm like, "Hey, pay attention." I slapped this kid talking. "Stop, God damn it, you have no respect." So that was totally cool. I think they seem like really nice people. And but I wish that they wouldn't keep calling themselves punk. I wish that they wouldn't say that. Sort of bands that are punk are like X was punk, you know? Like bands like that. And so to have a band sort of talk about on MTV, and they seem very nice, those guys. Like, seem if they were hanging out here, we'd have a great time. But they're just sort of, they're just a pop band. You know what I mean? They're a pop band. They write pop music.
How about P. Diddy?
The best skin I've ever seen on anybody in my life. We took an elevator ride in New York. He was friends with someone that I was in the elevator with, so we were out there having a conversation, and I was just kind of watching. And an incredible gentleman. He's in control. The world revolves around him, and it's pretty impressive. It's not at all something that you'd be like, gross. It's more like, fuck, dude, that's impressive. And he had the nicest skin I've ever seen in my life. Like, it looked like they just shined him. I'm down with it. Yeah, I'm into it. I wouldn't have a crew if I did. You know, I wouldn't have a following if it wasn't for downloading and tape trading. I think it's the best. I wish that people would. It's funny. I don't download because I'm never around. I have a dial-up on my computer, you know, and it's like, yeah. And I like to, but I like records. I like to buy CDs and like read liner notes and geek out. But so yeah, I'm totally down with it. I just hope that I hope that people don't lose the album concept, because it's really essential. When albums are sequenced in the way that are important, and when they're from beginning to end, when they have a real strong thing, there's nothing better than a journey. And I feel like downloading, quite possibly, though there are great benefits to it, because I have an iPod, and when I just put it on random, it's like a dream come true, you know? But I also feel like I lose the weight of, like, if Octung Baby was taken out of sequence, what would you have? That record is fucking perfection, you know. What would you do if Lou Reed New York was out of sequence? What would you do if there's a role to records to most records, whereas like some records don't really have a role. They have the first 4 songs are good and the rest is crap, which is fine. And like for Cyndi Lauper's greatest hits, it's good to download and just have songs. But like I feel like I just don't want people to lose the art of the record, because I think that that's part of the fun of listening to music, is sort of taking a journey from song 1 to song 12 or whatever.